On the agenda tonight, we're going to be having a listen to the Barcelona Guitar Trio, and they're going to be performing Billie Jean. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, with this particular performance, it is a bit of a lead-on from that video that we looked at with Walk Off the Earth, where there were 5 people playing the same guitar. And interestingly, on that video, because I said the audio was obviously not live and that some parts sound like they've been looped because it was a perfect performance the whole way through, I said that the video that I was watching wasn't labelled as being live, so I thought that it was just something that people assumed. But I was watching the video on a channel that wasn't the official channel of Walk Off the Earth, but then in the description of the Walk Off the Earth video it says Walk Off the Earth perform, and then, you know, obviously that was Gautier's, somebody that I used to know. So I think by throwing the word perform in there, or performs, it does push people into the direction of thinking maybe that they are performing it and that it wasn't done in the studio and then overdubbed. But anyway, back to this video. In this particular video, it is 4 people on 1 guitar, so we will jump into it and see how the guys get on. And there we have it. So, first of all, as soon as these guys start playing, you can tell, and especially I can tell as a guitar player myself, that there is pure classical technique going on here with the fingerstyle. And these guys, the guitar trio, I mean the guys that are actually playing the guitar, they are just top players themselves, and you can tell that straight away with the technique with the right hand. We've got what looks like the acrylic nails stuck on as well, so instead of growing out your nails you can stick them on and then therefore have that playability to play fingerstyle. There are so many elements in there that you can see that they are definitely doing this, and you can hear the way that the strings are reacting to the fingers when they're being played. There's nothing being looped around here. The only indiscrepancy is there's a slide that happens earlier than we actually see it happening. We hear it happening before it happens visually, but I think it's probably most likely the case because these guys are playing live and they're doing shows night after night. They'll probably do, what, 2 or 3 shows at a particular venue and then move on. So it could have been the fact that footage was taken from different performances and then pieced together. So I think it's more of an editing thing than a playing thing and trying to mislead people and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, so he's applying a vibrato, but the audio we're hearing is sliding down. Just to mention that when I talk about the technique on the fretboard that you can see instantly, these guys are top players independently, and this is just what they do on their show. This is kind of like a party piece, even though they do different songs just on one guitar. It's not just what they do, and it's not just a YouTube thing either. So during live performances, you will see them play independently and play as a trio with their own guitar. And with the style of play as well, this would be technically described as flamenco, because they're just playing with their hands. They're playing fingerstyle, and that's what flamenco is. And a lot of people do tend to call anything that sounds, you know, of Spanish origin flamenco, but if you're playing something that sounds like that and you're using a pick, then it isn't strictly flamenco, because you've got to just use your hands. I also love this part in the performance where it really speaks to the strength of the melody in the original composition, because you can't help but hear, and in this particular example, put in Michael Jackson's vocal ad-lib that's in the performance. But let's have a listen. So yeah, all these noises that Michael Jackson used to make, they just sit in there. They are like hooks, you know, melodic hooks that are just a noise of a voice, but they're so good. So, I mean, it's just really well played the whole way through, and we've got the bass line, which is that kind of runs the whole way through, being played at the bottom, but the chord shapes of going across the high E, B and G, so we have that kind of sound going up to and down to the open strings. So we've got that being played, but that's being plucked by the guy who's doing the bass. So it means that he's plucking strings that he's not actually playing, which can probably be a bit confusing and just will take some time to get used to. But I mean, that you could almost combine so it would be possible to do it all, you know, yourself, but obviously there's lots more stuff going on here with the lead lines, and if you've got somebody that can just play those chord shapes for you, it's going to be a lot better, because it means that now the arm doesn't have to come under the guitar and potentially, you know, get strike the other guy's arm who's playing the lead lines, because there's only space for one arm underneath this guitar. And let me just get it on screen again, because it just disappeared, but you'll be able to see what I'm talking about, that this arm position here and the shoulder can't disappear. The other thing to look out for is this, not only just the playing of the chords on that E, B and G string, but the solid anchor position that we've got here. And this is really important, and it's not something that you're necessarily going to notice, but by holding the headstock, it means that the movement of the guitar can be minimized. I mean, it's such an important thing that when you're just playing, you know, classical guitar anyway, you'll see that it's, you know, always over the left thigh, and it's kind of pointed up at pretty much a 45-degree angle. The guitar doesn't move. It's not a rock and roll show where they're going to be throwing it around their head and sliding on their knees, because it's all about being as accurate as possible to the piece that you are playing. So this is why when you've got, you know, three guys now fretting notes on the fretboard, if that guitar moves, it's going to make it so much more difficult. So really important part of it, anchoring the guitar so that it doesn't move, or at least you minimize the movement as much as possible. You will see slight movements of the neck, but, you know, not enough to affect the playing that's going on here. Another thing is that, I mean, obviously playing the guitar over the top, I mean, that's something that you've got to practice. And this whole piece isn't something that they just decided, oh, should we try and do this on one guitar? It's obviously very well rehearsed, and they've sat down together and made sure that their playing is absolutely A1 throughout this whole piece. And coming over the top of the guitar, again, you know, if you do play guitar and you've never played, coming over the top of the guitar, which I haven't, you realise that, those fretting positions and, trying to get clean notes over the top is a real challenge. It's almost like, learning to play again with that different technique. But with the tuning as well, in standard tuning with the low E string, it means that when I was playing there and I came down to my low E string and the B is here. So it's very easy to get to. But when you detune, it means that you've now got to go 2 frets higher up to get that same note. And this is something that is even more impressive because the jump has now got to be down 2 frets every time for that bass line. Let's just have a little watch, because I'll tell you what, now we'll get a little bit more of an appreciation of the movement of that left hand and the fact that he's playing over the top of the guitar and how clean it is. You can see that constant little jump up that he has to do. Like I said, really well rehearsed in order to get that bass line so solid the whole way through the performance. Because, like with any performance, the bass, even though this is just a guitar that's been tuned down, but that bottom line is the one that you're using as a reference point for everything else that's going on. We've got the bass giving you all of the notes that are determining your key. So all of the, the chord shapes obviously then slot on top of that. So if that bass line was a little bit kind of going, and all buzzy and accidentally palm muted and all that kind of stuff, it just wouldn't wash as a whole performance. So yeah, that bass line is just massively impressive just the whole way through. And even though I have mentioned it, I think it will still fly under your radar that while that bass line's going on, we're also getting a pluck of the high E string, B string and G string. So at the same time, so have a look at the right hand, the thumb doing the bass line and then the first, second and third finger doing the chord. So a lot of this performance is being covered just by one player doing the bass line, doing the chords, and then we've got the stability. He can also put in those chord shapes to avoid clashing with arms, but that's a really important part, getting that stability. And then we've got the percussive side of it, which is just striking the guitar. And again, we get a really nice sound from that as well. So yes, I mean, this for me is a totally live performance, and it's just the editing that is ever so slightly off in just one particular section, and it doesn't take anything away from the fact that these guys do it live, and this is what you will see and what you will hear if you go and watch them at a live performance. But a really interesting one again to take a look at tonight, and I do like diving into videos, looking at the details, and especially when it's like this where you can just appreciate great playing and there's nothing that's been done to try and mislead people or anything like that. It's literally just the video and audio from a live performance. It's more the case that video editors aren't guitar players, so they won't necessarily notice when something goes a little bit out of sync or is in there that we're not hearing, because they're just thinking about angles and making the overall video interesting to watch and seeing things as like, cinematographers and all that kind of stuff. Whereas obviously a musician and guitarist looking at it will spot those things that are slightly out. And it's, it's not as if there are loads of things that are out, because they would have played this so consistently every time. So anyway, thank you guys for requesting this particular video for me to take a look at. As always, let me know what you guys think and keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!